Our lesson this morning is simply titled, Someone is Waiting for You. You know, as I always say, the lesson I'm about to give is given to me, first and foremost. This lesson today basically came out of me thinking about all the things that we've kind of went through over the past couple of years. It's hard to believe that we've been under this COVID situation for nearly 2 years now. This started, I believe, in February of 2020. And we're rapidly approaching February of 2022. 2 years, doesn't it? It seems in certain ways that it was just yesterday. In other ways, it seems like it's been an eternity that we've been living under these conditions. And I got to thinking about all the folks in this life that have not named God. And I got to thinking about what have these past 2 years been like for someone who doesn't have God in their life. And so that's where the idea for this lesson came from. It's where my mind was at when I put it together. When it comes to waiting, most of the world, and even most of us, we don't like it too well, do we? A lot of times nowadays, when we pick up the phone and we need to get a hold of a doctor or get a hold of somebody in this life, we get the Robotron 3000 that tells us that our call is important and that someone will be with us shortly. And we get all this music that usually goes along with it that's kind of irritating to us sometimes. We don't like to wait. Folks will be in a waiting room and it's packed, and if it goes for very long, especially if it gets around that hour mark or more, folks don't like to wait. And of course, with waiting comes uncertainty. That's one of the worst parts of waiting, isn't it? The not knowing, the uncertain thing that comes with waiting. Uncertain of how things are going to work out. Uncertain whether we're going to be taken care of. Uncertain if anybody even cares. Now, as a Christian, we have God to fall back on. In these moments, as a Christian, we tell ourselves to be patient. And there's moments where we get frustrated with waiting. We tell ourselves, and we know that God's Word tells us that we are to be a patient person, and we have that to fall back on. When we have moments of uncertainty, we have God's faith within us to let us know that we will be taken care of, to take no thought for tomorrow. For tomorrow will take thought of the things of itself. As a Christian, we've got a safety net. As a Christian, we have things to fall back on, but what about somebody out in this life that's never named God? What has life been like for them? I thank Dad for singing that song because it is another one of the things I was thinking about putting this lesson together. We sing that song, Throw Out the Lifeline. The chorus of it says, throw out the lifeline, throw out the lifeline. Someone is drifting away. Throw out the lifeline, throw out the lifeline. Someone is sinking today. That pretty well sums up folks in this life. The question to us is, are we casting the line? Today we're going to look and we're going to see in many different ways how right now someone is waiting for you. Having said that, we go into our first point this morning. Number one is, someone is waiting to find their way. Now I'll tell you, in life, a lot of times this is one of the probably most unsettling things we ever face, isn't it? To not know where we are. Have you ever been on a trip somewhere and back in the day before GPS, you didn't know where you were going, a detour sign would be up ahead, and you thought to yourself, oh no, and your stomach sinks. You don't know the area, you don't know where you are, it's an awful feeling to be lost. Or maybe you go to a big facility. I know a few years ago, me and Bran went to that gigantic Cleveland Clinic Hospital. And we didn't know where we were. This facility is huge. We've all been in sections like that in our life, haven't we? We've had moments where we've been lost, absolutely, utterly lost. And it's the worst feeling in the world. But as bad as that feeling is, Isn't it a great feeling when someone comes along to show you the way? We've all been somewhere when we stopped at a gas station, got directions, and suddenly we knew where we were going. That momentarily lost feeling of not knowing where we are was immediately replaced by that relief of knowing where to go. Or someone shows you, points you the way when you're in a big facility like that, tells you where to go. It's a relieving feeling, isn't it? Right now, folks, there's someone out in this world, maybe someone closer than you think in your own life, who's trying to find their way. There's someone in this life right now who feels lost in their life. Someone who sees no purpose for their life, doesn't know why they're here, is looking for someone to show the way. God's Word tells us about this so eloquently. In Acts, the 8th chapter, in verse 31, there we have the story of Philip and the eunuch. But as part of that story, probably one of the most overlooked things is verse 31. There the eunuch tells Philip. Philip asked him, do you understand what you read? As the eunuch was reading the prophet Isaiah from God's Word. And he said, do you understand what you read? And the eunuch responds by saying, how can I unless a man guide me? And then it goes on to say that the eunuch desired, there's the word, desired that Philip would come up and join him in the chariot. Right now, there are folks in this world who desire to get answers. Right now, there are people in this world who desire to find purpose in their life. And how can they understand the way to find God unless a man guide them? We all know that awful feeling of being lost, of not knowing where we're going. There are folks in this life right now who are living that day by day. There are folks right now who are living their life each and every moment not knowing where they are, where they're going, why they're here, why it even matters. I'll tell you, one of the saddest things I heard was in a person having a religious discussion with somebody that was never named God. We were watching it on YouTube, and this man was questioning him and trying to get him to come to God. And the person that had never named him responded by saying, well, I'm siding with the devil because he's winning anyway. That person saw no purpose in their life. They saw no reason to find God. They find nothing worth any value in their life, so who cares? That person was screaming for someone to guide them. Someone to show them the way along the way, because they don't see a way. If only a person had taken the time to explain God to them and how He's going to change their life. Do we do that for somebody in this world? Not tell them what's going to happen to them if they don't change. Not take the approach of, if you don't turn your life around, you're going to hell. But take the approach of what is going to change in their life. You know, a lot of times in our life, we don't truly see how God has blessed our life until we get distance. When we get distance, when time shows us and we get a little bit of space, we see the magnitude of God's grace. Just look back on your own life. Do you see how God has blessed you? Do you see how the pinpoints, how the road markers have guided you along the way? How He's found you and put you in a life where you found a spouse, a family? Do you see how He's blessed your life each and every day? We love that, don't we? Don't we want that for others? Don't we hope and desire within ourselves as loving, faithful Christians that others will find that love in their life, that purpose, that hope in God? Someone is waiting to find their way. Are we pointing the way? Jesus Christ tells us in Matthew, the 9th chapter, verses 36 to 38. There he looked out on a multitude of folks that were scattered and lost and had never found God. And it bothered the Son of God to the point where he told the disciples, and he looked out on that crowd and he was troubled. And he says it's that they were sheep without a shepherd. He says the harvest is truly plenteous, but the laborers are few. Pray, therefore, that the Lord of the harvest would send more laborers unto his harvest. It bothered even the Son of God looking out and seeing how many people were lost and had no way. Does it bother us? When we're out and about in this world and we have acquaintances, people we know, co-workers, family, friends, people in our own life that are close to home, does it bother us that they're scattered like sheep with no shepherd? Do we ever think, and does it ever cross our mind, that those folks are lost? That they're hoping someone will come along and guide them? Right now, someone is waiting for you to show the way. Are we doing it? And are we praying to God that more laborers will come to help? Number 2. Right now, someone is waiting to be loved. Oh, I can't tell you in this life right now how many people feel unloved. How many people at this moment right now in their life are in a loveless marriage, a loveless relationship. They hope and pray that every single day that person that they care for will show them some shred of care. Will show them love in their life, and they wait day by day in frustration, in uncertainty whether it will ever happen. Right now, someone is waiting to be loved. Are we one that shows care? When we go out and about in this world, are we one of those few that are showing people that they matter? That little girl that checks you out at the grocery store and has had millions of folks come through over the last year that have treated her roughly and have been giving her a bad day every day. Are we one of the few people that comes through that line and treats her good? Are we showing people that they matter, that we care, that as Christians we show love unto other folks? We treat others as we would want to be treated. The golden rule. Right now, someone's waiting to be loved. I found across in my Bible study one of the most beautiful verses that's a two-edged sword. Peter tells us in 1 Peter 4 and verse 8, there he says, above all, have fervent charity or love among yourselves, because charity or love covers the multitude of sins. As we break that down and think about that a little bit, that says a lot, that little verse. What Peter's simply saying there is, above all things in your life as a Christian, have love amongst yourselves and show love unto other people. And by doing this, you're going to cover a multitude of sins. Not only are you going to cover a multitude of sins of your own, because God loves a faithful servant, but you're going to cover a multitude of sins upon that person. You're going to cover a multitude of wrongs that that person has faced. This person who's been mistreated, who's waited around for love, who's been in this loveless marriage or relationship, by you showing care to this person, it's going to make them think that they matter and know that they matter. It's going to make that person realize that not everybody in this world is like that. It's going to cover a multitude of wrongs that that person has faced in life. Isn't that a beautiful verse? Above all things, have fervent love among yourselves. and show that love, that it may cover a multitude of sins. Love goes a long way in this life. We've all met somebody in our life that's been like that with us. Have you ever had a bad day, a rough time in your life, a rough stretch where nothing seemed to be going your way, and here comes along the most unlikely person that will give you a kind word or tell you something or do something for you, and it changes your entire outlook for that day? Are we doing that for someone in our life every opportunity that we have? Above all things in our Christian life, are we showing love to others? To cover the multitude of sins that we commit in this life, to please God and gain His favor, but also to cover the multitude of wrongs that so many people face in this life. Right now, someone is waiting to be loved. Jesus Christ tells us in John 13, verses 34 and 35, at the Last Supper, He told His disciples, He told them there that we are to love one another as I have loved you. And by this all shall know that you are my disciples if you have love one to another. What's Christ saying? If you act like a Christian, if you treat other people like a Christian, people in this world are going to know what the name of Christianity means. It's not going to be a fad. It's not a trend. It's a lifestyle. If you go through life and you love others and you show them what a Christian is, they are going to know what the meaning of the word Christian means. Are we doing that? Right now in this world, somebody's waiting to be loved. Somebody's waiting to know that somebody cares about their life. Is that person you? And is that person me? Are we the person that brightens somebody's day? Are we the person that let people know that they matter, that we care, and that we are a true child of God? Above all things, have fervent love among yourselves. Jesus Christ, in one of the last things He told His disciples at that supper, love one another as you've seen me love you. And by this, others are going to know that you're a Christian. We know how Christ loved us. We know what He taught us. We know what He gave for us. Are we willing to give even a portion of that to other people in this life? Right now, someone is waiting to be loved. Are they getting it from you? Number 3. Right now in this life, someone is waiting to be saved. We've all had moments in life where we face tragic things, where someone's life hung in the balance. Someone got into an accident, someone had something happen to them, someone maybe has been diagnosed with a terminal illness. We've all known people in this life where life was hanging in the balance. And we do anything we can to save that person, don't we? Those folks, those EMT workers, God bless them, or people that do that kind of work for a living, they are right there on the spot when someone is at their dire straits. We go to any length to try to save a life. What about a person's soul? If we go to those extents to save somebody's life in this life that will eventually one day end anyway, are we going to that extent to save their soul? Right now, there are countless folks in this world, outside these doors, that are waiting to be saved. Their life, their soul, their eternal life is in the balance. James tells us about this in James 5 and verse 20. There he tells us, let him know that he that converteth a sinner from the error of his ways shall save a soul from death. That says a lot, doesn't it? Let him know that he that converts a sinner from the error of his ways shall save a soul from death. And here's our phrase again. And shall cover a multitude of sins. Are we saving somebody's life today? When we're going out and about in this world and we're talking to folks that we know have never named God and don't come to His understanding, are we trying to save a life? Because if we convert that person that's living in that ungodly state, that sinful state, if we would happen to be able to reach their heart, prick their heart in a way to where we can convert, change them, turn their life around, we not only save a sinner from his sin, but we're saving a soul from an eternal death. Right now, somebody in this life, in your life, is waiting to be saved. Are we throwing out the lifeline? Are we going to the same extent to save their soul as we would save their life? James tells us about the severity of it, doesn't he? A lot of times in life, sometimes folks don't think about the severity of someone's soul the same way they think about their life. A day like today, there's ice on the road, there's things going on. We know we would be calling each other, letting each other know, hey, you better watch out. There's ice up ahead. You better watch out. Take precaution today because your life is at stake. But when the pitfalls are up ahead in somebody's life and their soul could be at stake and they could be lost eternally, are we taking that same set of circumstances? Are we taking that same vigor to try to save somebody's soul that we would save their life? Let him know that he that converteth a sinner from the error of his ways shall save a soul from death and shall hide the multitude of sins. Right now, somebody's waiting. Somebody's needing help. Somebody's pleading for help in their life, and their soul is screaming to be saved. Someone's waiting for you. And folks, finally, number 4. Someone is waiting to reward. God's Word tells us in 1 John chapter 5 and verse 3. There it says, "For this is love, that we keep the commandments of God, for they are not grievous." Lots said in that little verse too, isn't it? What's John saying? You want to say that God is love? You want to show God that you do love Him in His life? This is love, that you keep the commandments of God, because they're not grievous. Don't go through life thinking it's a burden to do the will of God. It's not grievous. You want to show God that you love Him? Keep His commandments. You want to show God that you love Him? Start taking on the people that are waiting in this life. You want to show God that you love Him? Keep His commandments by helping someone find their way today. Let God know that you love Him by showing others that you love them. Let God know that you love Him by doing His will in this life. By saving a soul from eternal death. This is the will of God, that you keep His commandments, because they are not grievous. God's Word also tells us in Hebrews, the 11th chapter, in verse 6, at the end of verse 6 there it says, that God is a rewarder of those that diligently seek Him. Yes, someone right now is waiting to reward, and it's God Almighty. But He's willing to reward those that diligently seek Him. Can we say we're in that number? Can we say right now that we are one that is diligently seeking Him? So many folks right now are waiting for you in this life. Are they waiting no longer? Are we doing the will of God because it isn't grievous? Are we keeping His commandments, and are we one who will diligently seek Him? Are we one that's waiting to be rewarded? Someone's waiting for you. The lesson's yours. If there's anyone here this morning who's heard this word, I think we've all been baptized, but if you feel like you've drifted away from God, there are faithful men here to pray that you come back and be restrained. If you have that need, won't you come as together we stand and sing the song of invitation?